This channel supports Extra Life in its efforts to raise money for the Children's Miracle Network. For more information about how to donate and join in their efforts, go to the link displayed here. Extra Life. Play games, heal kids. What up, everybody? This is your boy Black Magus, and 2 hours later, I'm ready to give my first impressions on the full version of Detroit Become Human. I figure I'm gonna start doing this, playing a game for a couple of hours so I can get my quick impressions and takes on them, and then let you guys know how I feel about it. The reason I picked 2 hours is because I think 2 hours generally gets you in a pretty good mind frame. At least for me, it's always been the first 2 hours where I kind of get a taste or a grasp of how things work, what the story is kind of going to shape up to be. Of course, it doesn't necessarily tell me the direction the story is going to go in, but it kind of just, for me, 2 hours is a good sample area. It probably seems harder for a lot of people because, generally speaking, a lot of the beginning part of the game is tutorial. You can be learning a game for hours and hours upon hours, to be quite honest. But for me, especially with a story like this, I feel like first 2 hours is a good sample of it. Now, the game I'm talking about today, as you can see from the footage, is Detroit Become Human. So the game actually starts off and hits you in the face a little bit. I'm gonna try to be as vague as possible because I don't want to give away spoilers. But there's this significantly interesting way that the game makes you pick your settings, which I thought was a very nice touch. It was creepy, but it was a very nice touch. And if you played it, you know what I mean by creepy, because it ends on a very creepy note. Now, after that, you go into the game and you start. The game starts off with the demo, by the way. So if you've played the demo, you already know the first sequence. You probably have your path set down. Like, I played the demo like 2-3 times, so I already knew kind of what path I was going to take with some slight variations. And I ended up getting the same best result, at least what I thought was the best result. That's the one thing that's the most impressive about this game, is that you may think that what you did is the best result and bore out the best scenario, but once you complete a scenario, the game all of a sudden shows you all these different paths that you could have gone through. Now, some scenarios, there's only but so many paths, but I hit one scenario where I would have thought that there were pretty much only maybe 2 or 3 paths for that. And while it seemed like the end game kind of goes towards 3 paths, everything before that is so broken up and all over the place. It's like, wow, there's a lot of stuff that I haven't done on this. What happened? What did I miss? And I think this is what's going to make this game probably one of the better David Cage games. Right now, the story is pretty obvious to see where the story is going to go, as far as, the whole asking the question of humans versus AI and who has what rights and whatnot. I mean, he basically slaps you in the face with this stuff. He's not shying about what it is. It is a story that's akin to some of the racial tensions and, social tensions that we have among different groups and whatnot. The fights that we've been fighting in humanity for a very, very long time. But this whole new thing where you can branch out into these different things and you can accomplish so many different things that will change the nuance of conversations, the result of outcomes, is very, very interesting. I got to a point where I did something. I decided, I'm always trying to be as rational as possible and trying to hope for the best scenario. So I did something and I got what I did not think was the best scenario for me, and I immediately wanted to go back and replay the sequence just to fix it.
Now they do give you the option to do that. They do go back and they let you see like it's kind of like Until Dawn, where if you go back into like instead of going into a menu with just save points, it has a tree that shows how much you've done and what chapter you've gone through. And it'll let you go back to that specific chapter. So you can change that and then change the flow of the story that way. But I think it's cool because the game's AI kindly suggests that maybe you shouldn't just do this just yet. You know, you can if you want to, but we kind of suggest that you play through the first time and see what it's like, and then come back and change whatever you want to change later. Or and I looked at that, I was like, that's just so good. Why don't people adapt that in stories like this? Until Dawn gave y'all like the best way to do this, and it's like they need to do this more in even Telltale games. I think it would benefit if they would just let you go back to different chapters and replay different scenarios and stuff like that, but show your path and show what you did and all of that. I thought that was really cool. It made me stop. It actually made me stop doing what I normally would do, which is the thing that I think is the biggest, is going to be his biggest draw. Because I haven't played all of David Cage's games. I've only played one, Heavy Rain, and Heavy Rain seems to be the one that most people like. I like the game. The other games seem to be more divisive. But I think one of the things that's going to make this separate itself from all of his games is this whole one, the branching scenario trees, the things that you can do, how they compare them to like what everybody in the world had chose, stealing from Telltale's whole thing. When you get to the end of a Telltale game, you know how you always got the whole like this percentage of people made this decision, that decision percentage of people made this decision. I think putting that after each chapter really is a wise thing, and not just putting what the percentages of who the world did, but what your friends did as well. But also showing you like you could have went all over the place here, or some things. Yeah, it was pretty much straightforward. It encouraged you to want to go back and play this game. It actually puts itself in a position to make this a very recyclable game. It's a game that if you bought it, you can get a lot of time from it trying to break down things. If you want to lend it to a friend, you can go and compare to that. I feel like you're going to have not just like I said, in a few scenarios that I've done, there hasn't been a lot of in-game, although there was one where I think there was like 5, and that was the one I was dissatisfied with, and I was like, yeah, I don't really like this one, but I'm gonna stick with it and go through and see if they like do something that I hope, because I want to get another chance to do something else now later on in this storyline. It's like it's going to engage a lot of, I think, a lot of conversation if you like David Cage games, though. That's the biggest thing. He utilizes the DualShock controller to the fullest. It was one scenario. If you've ever played his games, when sequences happen, it's not like Telltale where it's just a swipe left, swipe right, possibly on the D-pad being the most demonstrative thing you have to do. You have to physically move the controller in certain ways to do certain things. He uses the 6-axis still. Like the only man I know that still uses the 6-axis to the fullest capability. Sony had talked about, if you don't know what the 6-axis is, it's basically the PlayStation controller itself kind of has like gyroscopes for motion that they built so that in certain games when it first came out, they made this big deal about how you can tilt your controller back and forth or rock it left and right to do certain moves. Like if you were playing I think they may have did this with some driving games where you can use the, controller kind of in a steering wheel like motion and things like that. The potential for stuff like that is in the capabilities of the PlayStation controller since I believe PlayStation 3. It was when the 6-axis debuted. So he still utilizes that. So it was a scenario where I got caught up. I was like, oh, it told me to do this, but it's like I'm naturally thinking sticks. No, he's gonna make you use every button. He's gonna have you do all types of weird button mash combos and all of that to get through stuff. It's it's an experience. So you might not like that because he wants you to be fully immersed in it, even with the controller. Um, and there's a lot of mundane things that you're going to end up doing in some of the scenarios, so you may not want to go through the tedium, although you can just blitz straight through the scenario to the end point. I don't suggest that, because I feel like I'm learning this from Heavy Rain, you kind of get more of a full sensation, and with this game I think you get a better experience because it's not just you going through the motions just to say you did stuff. They openly let you know, like, you doing this, you've created like another whole set of scenarios. Again, like with that scenario that I thought that only had a couple of options, they had a lot more. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's not just that particular scenario that sets the tone of each other scenarios, but the previous scenario actually shaped that scenario that I was going through. So it's a lot more connected. It seems a lot more connected. Maybe it's because he's now letting you be aware of like the fact that, yo, this is probably going to have some consequences. I think that it makes you engage more than it did in Heavy Rain. We all knew Heavy Rain had all these consequences. We all knew that all David games had these consequences. I feel like this one is more fleshed out, and maybe this is something they did in Beyond Two Souls. I've never played that. Heavy Rain is my reference points, but it seems like he's starting to get how to make this a better gaming experience instead of just him, cathartically speaking his piece on certain issues like he normally does, which is, I think, one of the things he gets knocked on is that his stories are so weird and has strange nuances that it's not necessarily fun to play. But I feel like he's starting to strike a balance with this as far as making a little bit more engaging on top of his weird, quirky style of storytelling. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I can see that can, go wrong in this game, and it probably will, because David Cage is the king of jank. It's just like camera issues, although he seems to have had a better sense of the camera thing by allowing you to change the camera more in this game. Again, I don't know if that was like that in Beyond Two Souls, but that helps to alleviate some of the camera jank that he always has, and some of the like motion, still has that jittery motion sometimes when you get near things that you have to interact with. It's not picture perfect, stuff like that, but so far it seems like it's a much more smoother and a much more smarter experience from the game aspect, not necessarily from the story aspect, from the game aspect. His mechanics have improved, definitely have improved. But we'll see as this goes along. I mean, so far, yeah, I'm digging it. It's gonna hurt to go through this game with that one mistake I made so early. Oh my god, I wanna know that it's going to turn out a different way, but we'll see. By the way, this isn't spoilers. They've said before there's certain instances where you may lose a character, and they may be gone for the whole game. So bear that in mind, people, when you're making your choices. That choice really hurt. I'm probably exposing something by saying that. I'm sorry. It really hurt. I was like, God damn it, Michael, why'd you do that? Just to be different for different sakes. Don't do that. Just go with your mind. That's another thing too. I will say this: there seems to be more agency with you going with your mind or how your reactions. Because again, this one scenario, and I can't talk about. It's not the bad scenario, but this other scenario. It was an instance where like I did something I didn't think about it, but when I looked, I was like, oh, I did what the game told me not to do, and it let me do it, and yeah. That is really, really cool. That is really, really, really cool that it let me do that. So, yeah, I want to explore the different nuances and things that he's did because it seems like he's kind of adding, a little more life to his games. His games have always been just predicated on the whole story and the like immersion of you picking up a cup, you doing this. But I feel like the things that he's done so far that have shown right now kind of make it a lot better than what our previous experience from David Cage. But really, really interested to finish this off now. Glad I got it. It was actually pre-ordered, and I meant to take my pre-order off, but it sent through Amazon, and I'm kind of glad it did. But anyway, as always, feel free to hit me up. Let me know what you think, and I'll holler at you later. This your boy Black Makers, and I'm out. Deuces.